Well, hello my friends. Welcome back. This is Avatar of the Remounting. Today going to be a follow-up of the wonderful words that I've gotten from the bottle brush. And this topic will go into different words. Not all words, but I can tell you. I get many questions from some of you guys asking, how do I deal with green wood afterwards? How do I deal with pit? How do I deal with warpage? How do I deal with a lot of issues related to green wood turn? And I wish there was an easy and simple answer that I could give you that applies all the way through and be one rule for all woods. Far from it. Some woods, especially if they're gnarly and stuff like that, what they do, you cannot control. As far as the pit is concerned, leaving the pit in, it is my opinion and from my experience that if I turn it thin enough, the pit does not become an issue of cracking. Occasionally you will get a couple of hairlines showing up, but again, you will have to decide of how critical you are of your finished piece, whether if you believe that a hairline, check line takes away from your finished piece and you no longer consider it a nice piece because of a check, then you gotta start turning is dry. Or rough turn it, put it what some other people do, which is a method that you can do. Put it in a bag with shavings, let it dry for 6 months or so, check it occasionally, check the moisture content, turn it back on the lathe, and true it up, and that way it will stay to that shape. I don't do that. If I lose a piece, and I will say, I probably have lost, out of all the turning that I've done, maybe 4 pieces that it's like, oh, okay, this thing went way too far, much further than I appreciate, and I did not like the piece after the fact and discarded the piece. But that's out of a lot of pieces that I've turned. The majority of them have changed somewhat from my initial turning. So if it was true all the way through, it might have become a little bit scallopy, which looks beautiful, or it might have decided to oblong its way in a way which I think is fine. But I will use an example. The bottle brush wood, which is extremely long, and I'm bringing back to the lathe the last piece I did, which I think was a fantastic piece. Quite a challenge to put into the lathe. But the wood really has its own mind on where it's going to go. And this one has gone a little bit further than what I want. So the fact that it's no longer true on this area, that it's slightly oblong, or the swing curled in slightly, or it became a little bit more scallopy on the inside, and or raised up a couple of small areas from one to the other. They're not any longer exactly true to themselves. If that was a feature that bothered me, then I would have to look in. But it's not a feature that bothers me at all. I still like this piece very much. Even with what it did, it's got a lump over here because that's the nature of the wood. So I am perfectly happy with how this piece decided to go. But there was one area that it decided to do something that I did not want. And that's what I'm going to address today. I don't normally put things back on the lathe. I put them on the lathe, I let it decide where it wants to be, and that's it. When I generally put things back on the lathe, it doesn't work in my favor. because I turn them thin enough so I can't reach through the whole piece. But on this case, it decided to do a smile face for me and curled up its upper lip on this area right here. So with that bothers me. So that would be an extent. The bottom is not 100% true, but it still sits. It still sits flat on the surface. So that doesn't bother me. But if I look at it, you can see it this way, that the whole piece has done a rollover this way. That doesn't bother me. If it bothers you, then you know what to expect and don't be turning green. But with this, I'm going to address this issue right now. I'm going to mount this back on the lathe, try to true it up as much as I can, and I'm going to pass my scraper or one of my tools in here and get rid of this piece. It won't do it again. It did it that one time, and who knows? Depending how brave I feel, I might take off this lump. I might. So we'll see what I do as far as putting something back on the lathe and how far do I go. Now I know that's going to make a couple of small marks from the jaws on the piece, and I'll be able to treat that up with a different technique. Definitely does not fit on these jaws. So go to the next size down, and if you can't, you can always put a jam chuck inside here, go between centers again, and true this up, which would probably be a pretty good way of doing this. But that's not what I have in mind. What I have in mind is to set it up on my 3-inch jaws and true it up. With that in place, I'm going to see what I can do with it. But this is a rare, very rare case of me actually doing something and bringing the piece back to the lathe to change what it's decided they wanted it to be. Generally, I'm happy with the results. And like I said, if it was just this scalloping that has created over here, these little indents and projections out, I would not have a problem at all with this piece. But this right here, well, that looks like a defect. So, I don't have much. I gotta be careful on how much I take off on that. I'm gonna go with my round scraper. Not bad. So you can see I've brought it down to the same elevation. Now checking the thickness, and I don't have much on this area right here, which it's going to take a little bit if I keep going up, and not taking anything really off this side, but I could probably thin down this lump that's going through here slightly as well. So you can see where it's hitting over here. That's where that lump was. Check the inside, see what you got. I got about 3/16 of an inch over there. So I have a little bit of room, and then I can sand that and blend it down. I'm going to take it a little bit more just to get to this lip and this concave that's here. So just go up a little bit and feather it down slightly. There I go. I am not going to go any further than that. And here's a vase that still has a few small indents going through it, which were formed by the shrinkage of the wood. And the reason why it did so much of this is because it's really gnarly. It has different grains in different directions. This would come out normally. This grows outwards this way. So all those changes are fighting each other as it's drying. So the more you have of this different directionals, crotches and stuff of that sort, the more it's going to pan out and play out with what it decides to be. So it's all a matter of what you can accept or not accept. So really, bottom line is, our personal tastes are what determines whether if something is good or not good. Hand shaping with a sander might be an option also to eliminate some of the areas that you might not like and make it a little bit more to your likings as well. Now what I did here, I did not take anything from the inside. If I was to take from the inside, I could possibly blow this through. So I'm gonna keep the inside as being the way it is, with these lumps in here and whatnot. So even some of you, my friends, have commented and asked, it's like, hey, why don't you use a vacuum chuck? Why don't you use your Jacob chuck or whatever I have that could do reverse, finish off my reverse process? And it's like, well, why do I need to do that when the system that I use I think works just fine? So it really becomes a matter of work with what you got, work with what you feel comfortable with, and not necessarily work with what everybody has or should have. Nothing should be a should have. Everything should be as it might be nice to have, but do we really need it? And that's the bottom line. I don't need a vacuum chuck. At least I haven't found that I need one. Could I have used one a couple of times? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. But a couple of times don't justify me having to have one, because there's always an option, always a solution on what you can do as far as mounting. Now, mounting this over here, this piece I use back and forth a lot of times. It has no other purpose other than this. It has served me up to right now. And right now it doesn't serve me because these wings are so deep that if I put it in, the wings come pretty close to the headstock. And if I turn it, it will definitely hit over here. So I have to consider options. And options to be considered, number one is if I put my 100mm jaws, it's probably enough just because of the difference in the thickness of the jaws that brings me way out here. Would probably be more than enough of what I need to extend it far enough so the piece does not hit the tailstock at all, the headstock at all. So remove this. And swap out the jaws. Now just by extending this out, I should have enough, and I definitely do, to be able to mount it, and this is nowhere near my headstock. But the vase hits this part of the jaws right here. So if I put it this way, I have a chance of blowing it out or making marks from my jaws. So I have to consider on what I have in front of me, and what I have is I have to do a little bit of protection on the piece. So here it is, rethrowing a vase back on the lathe. Bring it back. It was turned originally green, very green, very moisture. A lot of moisture coming out of here, literally spraying me on the face as I was turning this. Let it take a little bit of its shape. If that shape is a little bit offensive to you, as long as it's within reason, and wood doesn't get much worse than this one as far as reshaping itself during the dry process. Well, here it is. The vase is repaired. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and like and share with your friends. Thank you.